What's up, gang? Welcome to another episode of the Grindcast. Get ready, it's a new day. And today we have my friend Bergen, Giordani from One Hot Cookie.
Yes.
She is a female business owner, boss lady beast with a, it's not just a cookie store. If there's anybody listening in the Pittsburgh area, you got to check out One Hot Cookie. I mean, these things are like, it takes every ounce of discipline in my body to drive past your spot up there.
You should not have that discipline.
And I break often, and these cookies are amazing. You know, I don't know what you put in those things, but it ain't a normal whatever you got going on ain't a normal cookie. But so why don't we start out and tell us about your journey, where you're from, and how you got started. I know you were a single mom and had a daughter at a young age. And
yeah, so we actually started in 2013 in Youngstown, Ohio. So we go kind of back that way to the 44503. I was working full-time for a nonprofit organization in town that did economic and business development. And then I was also working on the side, bartending / waitressing at the Royal Oaks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was doing that on the side, working full-time. I had my...
I just learned this today.
Okay.
That you were at the Royal Oaks. Come on, I grew up around the corner from the
I know that, yeah. So, you know.
Yeah, I know.
It's a lovely place. Everyone who's listening who's not been there.
Yeah.
But, no, it's great. So I was working there. I'd put myself through school after I got divorced and was working 2 jobs to provide a life for my daughter and I. She was 15. She had just turned 15, turning 16 at the time. And we'd always had an entrepreneurial spirit. My father owned his own business when I was growing up. And then
what was his business?
He owned a business that manufactured weightlifting equipment.
Okay.
So like benches and dumbbell racks and that sort of thing. So yeah, but he got out of that along the way. Anyway, so working 2 jobs, trying to cobble together a life, and realizing there's got to be a better way. Also having this entrepreneurial spirit, and also loving to eat cookies. So we'd always had enough money, but it was never enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So one of the things that Morgan and I, that's my daughter, we always did was we'd go out for dessert. So, and we like to joke because there was a Brewster's near us.
Okay.
And, they do the raining or snowing, second scoop is free. So we would be like sitting there and she'd be like, it's snowing, let's go, we have to go get ice cream. So we, kind of going to dessert became our thing. We'd eat dinner at home, but I
broke down and went to Handel's yesterday. I blame it on my daughter. We went to go see Aladdin.
Oh, nice.
And just her and I. She'll be 4.
Is there one down here?
A movie theater?
No, a Handle.
Oh, girl. Yes.
All right.
Yes, there is. Right in McCandless.
Oh, okay.
So about 10 minutes from your shop.
I do know where it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I broke down and had
What'd you go with?
4 big Oreo cookie scoops on a waffle cone. See, that's my thing. When I decide that I'm going to do it, it's extreme.
You're going all in.
When I come to your place, I'll get a couple boxes and I'll say, well, I'm bringing some of these back to the office, but really one box is like for me, and the other box goes to some of the people from the office. Once I start going, it's like I got to eat 7 of them.
We don't judge, so it's fine.
I appreciate that.
And we appreciate the enthusiasm.
All right.
All sweets. So dessert was kind of our thing, baking was kind of our thing, and then I ran into someone who, and I don't need to bore everyone with Youngstown history, but you're familiar with the redevelopment that was going on about that time in downtown Youngstown, the Erie Terminal Building.
Yep.
So the Erie Terminal Building was a former train station, and it's been redeveloped for, first floor is mixed use, retail, commercial, and then the floors 2 through 4 or 5 are about 35 student housing apartments. So kind of the perfect building, right on the steps between downtown Youngstown, the business district, the entertainment district, and campus of Youngstown State University. So kind of had this building, and I ran into the people who were developing it, and I said, hey, I was out and I saw this cookie shop. It was an insomnia cookie. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with insomnia, no. But
only thing before yours that I can remember in Youngstown like that was it original cookie?
Yeah, in the mall.
In the mall.
This was out of town.
Okay.
So I was like, hey, I saw this. They don't sell franchises though. Okay. So you're going to need to contact them directly, but you need to put one in Erie Terminal. Like, who wouldn't want to have cookies late night? This is great.
Right.
And the guy pulled out his phone, was like, well, you can do that. And the Royal Oaks, everyone's having a great time.
Yep.
So I'm like, yeah, of course I can do that. I can open a business.
Yep.
Not a big deal at all.
So Royal Oaks, for those of you guys out there that have no idea what that is, they've had to be around.
They're the oldest bar in
100 years?
Youngstown. Yeah, they were the first liquor license after Prohibition.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it's like Cheers. It's kind of in the hood.
But yeah,
but
it's all good.
It's people have been coming there for years. You got people that have been coming there for 50 years. Their parents went there, and it's like a staple in the area right before you hop on the freeway. So
correct.
Yeah.
So we're there, and he's like, "Oh, you can come look at it. I got 400 square feet. It'll be perfect for you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can do it." And he pulls his phone. He's like, "Tuesday at 4." And I'm like, "Yeah, Tuesday at 4. I'm there." So I'm like, oh, "What am I doing?"
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really think too much of it. And then I show up, and we walk through the space. I'm like, "This is perfect. I can figure this out."
Mm-hmm.
And then, who knows what'll happen. So I went home after that meeting and I wrote a business plan, and I took everything that I had in savings, which at the time was $2,000, which is, not a lot of money,
No.
but yet a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
to me at the
At
time.
that time, yeah.
So, and I thought, well, you know what, this is not life-changing money. Like, so I can, if I blow it, I blow it. I can say I tried.
Right.
And if not, we'll see what happens. But it turns out $2,000 was life-changing money
Wow.
because that's what we used to start the business.
And so is that where you're located now?
Yeah, so we have a location.
In
we're in Erie
Youngstown?
Terminal. That was our very first location. We've
Love
been
it.
there for 6 years. We're right on the corner of Phelps and Commerce. So Phelps is kind of the burgeoning entertainment strip there.
Yep.
And so we're right there at the bottom of the steps where all the students and faculty walk down to hit the downtown for lunch and evening stuff.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And so
great.
how long since that one has
That
been
was
open?
2013, so April
Okay.
of 13, so 6 years.
6 years?
Yeah.
All right. And then, so you went from there, now you have 2 other ones.
Now we
I
have,
know Boardman was the most recent.
actually, no,
Wexford
Wexford's
was the most recent.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've been in
All right.
Boardman 4 years in
Okay.
October.
All right,
So,
gotcha.
yeah, we started to
So you went there to Boardman.
kind of got some legs, and then we started trying out some different opportunities. So we did Ross Park Mall, we did the Grove City Outlets on these temporary deals, and realized that we really like this Pittsburgh market, and what can we do? We needed a larger space. So the opportunity came up in the plaza right in front of North Allegheny High School, so
Love it.
yeah, we jumped on it.
So before we move forward, why don't you tell us a little bit about, I come from, single mom. There's a couple things that, in my vision of, looking 10 years ahead, what would I like to be involved in from a, nonprofit standpoint, charity standpoint. I think that's been I don't know if you call it a gift or a calling or what. One of the things that I've liked to do that I've found some success in is helping to get some nonprofits moving and off the ground.
And it's much needed. It's much needed work, so.
And but one would, for me, I'd like to be a part of down the road would be something for single moms in a transitional phase, because I come from that. And so my mom had me at 19 years old. We were in welfare lines in McGuffey Plaza. We lived with my great grandmother. She was 80 years old on the east side of Youngstown. And my mom worked at the Southern Park Mall. She worked multiple jobs,
Yeah.
2-3 jobs. Night school at Youngstown State. All of it just,
Am I your mom?
a
No,
grind
I'm just kidding.
of well. You look. You know what? You look young enough to be my mom, because my mom.
Your mom looks amazing.
like she's 30, like
Yeah.
you. So yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, that. About any encouragement, any for somebody that may be
Sure.
going through that.
And I think, I think that I've always had a kind of a work ethic and a mindset, and I can figure it out in a very independent streak. And one thing I do remember is when I was, I got pregnant when I was 17, and I was attending a Catholic high school, so all of the stereotypes, all of the situations. And I remember I called one of the local agencies, and now granted this
Where
was...
were you going?
I went to Kennedy Christian.
Okay, yeah,
now
you
it's
told
Kennedy
me that.
Catholic.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
But I called one of the organizations. And granted, this is 1996, 97, so it's before the internet really was in
Okay.
your homes and was a thing.
Okay.
And I called someone, and I was Catholic Charities, some organization, and I was like, "Hey, I'm pregnant and I'm in high school. Can you help me?" And they're like, "We can give you some pamphlets on adoption." I'm like, "Well, I don't need some pamphlets on adoption. I need a path to figure out how to graduate high school,
Yeah.
and how to get some money and a job and to provide a life." And I felt like there was no resources out there. So when you're talking about starting a nonprofit, I think that and now granted, that's 20 some years ago, but I can't imagine that need has been filled that quickly.
Yep.
Just a place to turn.
I'd have to imagine, from that point to, 2013, there had to be a little bit of a grind.
Sure.
I look back at, at our life, and it took my mom, till we were, I think I was 16 years old. We moved to Camel, and I thought we had made it. I mean, we bought a house. We sold our house for $11,000. We bought one for $30,000. We painted it. It was 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. Mine was upstairs. We made the attic into my bedroom. I blame that on me being short, because I had to, I had to fit up there, and so I look at how long it took her to dig out of the obstacle. Now, I don't want to call it a hole, because anybody with kids knows. I mean, I know the way that her and I relationship is. We wouldn't have had it any other way, and I know the way that I feel for for my kids. I don't want to say it's a hole, but it's definitely a challenge. That other people don't have to deal with. Oftentimes. And
I think that there's a baseline challenge anytime you're raising children, and then when you take socioeconomic conditions and you add them on there, it's just like sandbags on your shoulders pulling you down. So you're still walking that line that all the parents are, but it just becomes a little bit more sluggish.
Yeah. And so you get out of that, and as you get into the transition of, okay, I'm working at the Royal Oaks and doing, and now I'm going to own my own business.
Yes. So for a while, Simon, I was actually grinding it out, and I was working 3 jobs essentially, because I was still bartending on the side, trying to get this business off the ground, and still working full time. So
who was helping with your daughter?
Well, at that point she was driving, so I made her get a job. So not a get a job, she had to come work in the business. So she actually tells the story that she had to go on an interview for college, and it was her first actual interview. She'd interviewed people, but she'd never actually
interviewed
been
herself.
Yes, been interviewed by anyone. So
what an experience.
Yeah.
Now, did you end up finishing college?
I did. I graduated in 3 years while working full time. So yeah.
Ooh,
I'm a nerd.
Beast mode.
Beast mode.
Full time.
Or another word that starts with a B. But yes.
Single mom.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. No excuses.
No excuses. And at that point, I just wanted to get it done, because I was a non-traditional student. I started in 2006 and thought, at that point, I'm in it. We're just going to finish. Like, get it fucking done.
Right.
So, yeah.
Love it. So you got it done. And so then, in the transition, you went from the Royal Oaks to your first space at
yeah, and then we actually were approached by the Mahoning County Public Library, and because they're trying to do some new, unique cafes and to really get children involved in the library, and they had an opportunity and said, would you like to be the cafe in one of our libraries in Austintown? And we said, yeah, sure. So that was like a nice 1-year deal, and at that point, I call it the tipping point. If you read enough of those business books, that point where you actually like tip and become a business.
Yes.
For a while, because we would be like, oh, we own One Hot Cookie, and people would look at us like, they don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And then it went to, we're sitting at dinner, and people across the bar are talking about going to One Hot Cookie, and we're like, that's us. That's us.
Yes.
Look at us.
Yes.
So we kind of.
How long was that?
So it was about 10 months, because Youngstown is a small community.
Yeah.
They're very loyal. Word travels fast.
Loyal. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So. So I'd say about 10 months, and then the library hit, and we kind of did that, and that gave us an opportunity to determine, are we just going to play around with this, or do we want to give this a go as a viable business? So
anything that you learned, first thing that sticks out to me is you took the chance to say, okay, here's my $2,000, which at the time was maybe close to a life savings.
I mean, yeah, I think you can say that. It was our life. That's what we had.
So, I tell people, you can't steal second base with your foot on first base.
Absolutely.
People wish they could. Well, it's like so often I think people get analysis paralysis. They're just analyzing everything, and they're just paralyzed by analyzing instead of just go. Just
But I'll tell you, with that mindset, everything we do now is harder than that first time, because the first time no one knew who we were, no one knew what we were doing. It didn't matter to an extent.
Yes.
But now when we come out of the gate, we have to come out at this humming at this very high peak.
Keeping your brand.
So now I feel like I have the paralysis more than I did 6 years ago, when it was kind of like, we'll see what happens. This will be great.
Yep.
Whereas now I'm like, oh, well, how is this going to affect everything else? And that sort of thing. So
because probably, I just want to, from owning businesses, you get it to a point where you put in a lot of work and you get it to a point where it becomes profitable and sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And, the pressure never really goes away, but the pressure that you started with, maybe goes from like a 10 to an 8.5.
Sure.
And so 8.5 seems like a 2 because you're used to carrying a 10 pressure.
Yep.
And so, the thought process becomes, do I now take what, is comfortable and start to reinvest that and take that
Absolutely.
money out as a risk / investment, and know that now my pressure is going to go back from an 8.5 to a 10. So
I always like to liken it to riding a bike. So you can ride a bike and you're pedaling, and when you first start out, you're pedaling like hell. You're just pedaling, and then at some point you can take your feet off and coast a little bit, but then you want to do something else and you got to start pedaling again. Or you just get that boredom or that spark, and you're like, man, I just want to go faster.
Great analogy.
So yeah.
What were some of your biggest challenges and obstacles, would you say, in the first few years of starting your business?
Oh, funding is obviously we did not, the first couple of years we did not take on any outside loans or funding, so we were very cautious. My whole thing was, and my friend Dave Rubino has a sign company, and he was like, hey, I'm going to put a sign up, and I'm like, no, I can't pay you. And he was like, it's cool, you can just make payments. I'm like, no, dude, I'm not going to owe you money for something that might be in my basement in 5 years, like, as a joke.
Yeah.
So when I can write you the check, and what was it, $1,500, $2,000? I'm like, when we can pay for it out of the proceeds, then I'll get the sign. And he was like, you're a fool. So now, how many stores later, he's like, remember when you didn't want to buy a sign? And I'm like, yeah, I remember, shut up. Like, it's fine now. So
funding was the
funding's always tough.
Would you say the workload, you were used to working 3 jobs. Did you keep working 3 jobs?
I did.
So you were still working a couple jobs, and then you opened up the...
Yeah, I actually continued to work full-time outside of the business until last winter, so.
Wow, okay,
yeah.
So you're working full-time outside of the business.
Yes, so, and you'll appreciate this, my daughter graduated from college in May of last year, and I did not want her to take on any student loans, because one of the things that I incurred as a non-traditional student was student loans, and I thought if there's one thing I can do for her is to set her up without this.
What a head start.
So it's been great.
Where
so that was my goal.
From?
Youngstown State,
Love
baby.
It. Go Penguins.
Yes.
Go Penguins. Love it. So you were still working a full-time job and owning and running a business.
Yeah. And I will say that
how did you pull that off? I mean, were you able to do that? Opening a business, typically opening a business, takes a lot of hours. Even if it's not hard hours, the mental hours of planning, preparing, who's on the schedule, because if you ain't there, somebody got to be on the schedule.
Absolutely.
This one's sick, who's going to cover that one, insurances and, flat tires or, whatever. So the amount of hours hardcore that you're there, then there has to be some behind the scenes hours that you're
absolutely.
thinking. What did that process look like?
So it's all about balance, and I feel that you run multiple businesses, so I just kind of approached it with that mindset. Like, there's 24 hours in a day, and at first I was trying to juggle, like, so from this time to this time I'm only going to focus on this, and then these hours will just be dedicated to Cookie. And then it took me about a month, maybe 2, and I was like, this isn't working.
Blend.
So yeah, it's all in all day long, and whatever needs the most attention at that point in time, that's what rises to the top. So
love it.
Yeah.
We as a business owner, you don't count hours really much.
No.
But could you think about, when you were working a full-time job and running One Hot Cookie, if you had to add up the hours, what amount of hours would you say you were putting into working?
I mean, I feel like I felt like I was always working at some point in time, and I feel like when you own a business, they don't really sleep. It's like having a baby. So you're always kind of in the back of your mind thinking about what's the next move, what's going on. I mean, last night in Youngstown we had some terrible flooding. Fortunately, none of our businesses were affected, but I know there were other neighboring businesses and neighboring residences that had major issues. So, we're making calls, we're checking we're seeing what's going on. It's 10 o'clock at night. Do you want to be in bed? Sure. Or reading a book or watching TV, doing whatever. But instead we're, dialing in to make sure everything is going on. This morning, North Allegheny Senior High School doesn't have power. So it's, does our plaza have power? Yes, we do, fortunately. So we're open today, everyone. But,
Love it.
But yeah, so like I think there's always that in seed in the back of your mind.
So other than the mental, knowing that you're always quote on call, I'm trying to get a picture, to speak everyone's language, so.
So looking for a number?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say 60, 70 hours a week, and that's,
12-hour days.
Yeah, whatever, like kind of whatever it takes.
6 days a week.
Yeah.
5 days a week.
I mean, so we run a 7-day-a-week business, so it's not like we have the luxury of saying like, oh, well, we're closed today, so we can just kind of take a mental rest day.
Yeah.
Weekends are also our busiest times in this industry. So when people are not at work, we are busy. So
Right.
yeah, so there's that.
That's that's something that's big. I think people see the perks of being a business owner, and but they don't see what comes with the process.
No, and there's a
being
million
business
memes
owner.
and a million graphics that really show that, the struggle where you're on top of the mountain, but you don't see the legs kicking down below, or something similar to that.
Yep.
Where, it's not, what you see here is not our day to day.
Right. How would you encourage yourself in that process? Was there anything mentally that you would do to handle the pressure of everything? Was there an outlet? Was there, anything that you would do yourself or that you would suggest to others when you're dealing with the stresses and pressures of having, 3 business babies? You got three businesses. Those are 3 babies.
Absolutely.
And you got to be on call, all the time. It's a 24/7. Deal. You're probably waking up to it, you're going to bed to it, it becomes your life. To do it the right way, it just becomes a part of who you are.
Right.
How do you deal with that?
I mean, I think you
pressure?
have to take some time for yourself. You need to, work out, exercise, or find whatever your release may be. So, for me, it's planning. Like I work best off a plan. So when my anxiety rears its head, if I can put some things down on paper, like that helps. That's a calming method for me. Meditation is great. Going for walks. My daughter and I have this thing with our dogs. So like we like some quality time with the pups. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's whatever you can do to kind of make it
Your
work.
release.
Yeah.
Yeah. I when you talk about scheduling, it's funny you say that. I'm planning here in a couple hours. I'm going to be doing some mentoring with a group of. I've learned in the phase that I'm in the growth mode that I'm in. We have 13, 14. I'm losing track because we're opening 1 locations in 5, soon to be 6 states. But the plan on paper is to double over 24 months.
Talk about babies.
You know what that brings. And so in order for that to happen, there's some people that are, lower level managers that need to step up and be ready to run.
Yeah.
And so behind the scenes, I'm personally working with a group of, leaders and up and coming managers that behind the scenes, no one's watching this happen, but I'm working with them one-on-one or in a group setting. And I was just planning today, what am I going to talk about today? And so our business, my main business, the insurance business, is an entrepreneurial business by nature. So, even if you're starting out in sales or you're in management or you're running an office, it's all entrepreneurial. There's things that you can invest into to grow yourself, to grow your business. It's not a clock in, clock out, 9 to 5 deal. And so I'm planning today to be working with them on the 2 key things before I open it up to questions is how to properly schedule your time and how to properly manage your money. And I think those are 2 things as an entrepreneur that people struggle, with. That's not a strength that I see.
Have you tried the time blocking? You familiar with time blocking?
No.
So I read voraciously business books and all that nonsense.
Come on, me too.
But so time blocking is, and I just use my phone, like the Outlook calendar. You schedule blocks of time to do specific tasks. So instead of making a list like today I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, you actually schedule time for it so that when it pops up, that's what you're doing. So
that's how I run my life.
People who are task oriented really work well, and then you cannot get buried down in the, oh, well, it's really easy for me to do these 6, 9 simple things, but I really need to do this because this is going to drive the business.
Yes.
If you can time block it out, to me, it just is kind of a no-brainer, and it makes me follow a plan better. So it might be something you want to take a quick peek at and talk about.
That's 100% of what I'm going to be going over.
Yeah.
And it's crazy you said that's what I do.
Yeah.
I get from family members, they joke with me about, oh, Simon, when he goes to the bathroom, it's scheduled.
Right.
You know what I mean? Literally, my whole life is scheduled that way. And from when we're going to work out to the drive time.
The drive time is huge.
I plug drive time.
Me too. You have to do that.
Drive to office.
Yes.
Drive to. Well, people don't account for that because you got to work backwards.
Absolutely, because there's nothing worse than sitting there and having the thing go off and you're you need to be there in 10 minutes, but you're 40 minutes away and embroiled in another project. So
when you see it on I don't want to say paper, but when you see it on your phone, you see it on your calendar, it says drive time, and it's in blue.
Yeah.
And you have it like today. I got to be in Youngstown, so I'm meeting Boom Boom Mancini today at 4:00 at Michael Alberini's.
Nice.
So I already have in there drive time.
Yeah.
That's going to be
I
an
had it
hour.
this morning because I knew I needed to leave. I couldn't be late.
Drive time.
Yep.
And then it's blocked off for how long I think that's going to be. Has drive time back, and so I think as
All day
much
long.
as you can schedule of your life, the better it's going to be.
It also puts it in perspective, I think, when you have a day with a lot of goals and a lot of things you want to accomplish, what's feasible in a day? Because, like you said, you don't really count the hours, but there are only so many of them.
24.
So, and
the way that people manage, I heard somebody say, the way that people manage 24 hours is kind of like if you could imagine 2 suitcases. And, my wife packs better than I pack. I'm learning from it, but one of the things I learned is she'll like roll up my shorts and t-shirts. And I noticed versus me folding them, if you roll them, I could fit more in that suit. If you properly put them away the right way, you can fit more in a suitcase than somebody that just throws a bunch of stuff in there. And so your scheduling
is that exact tactic.
Is how much stuff can you fit in your suitcase? What can you fit in your 24 hours and stay, organized? Another thing that I do, I don't know if you do this, I try to always look in advance. Like I'm not getting to Wednesday looking at my Wednesday schedule. I'm looking at it I'm looking at that Sunday. I'm looking at Wednesday.
So I have Sunday night at 9 p.m. Weekly planning session scheduled.
Come on, that's what I do. This is what it takes.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, you have to be, it sounds obsessively organized, it sounds nerdy, but it's the only way to get through.
Sunday, 9:00.
Yeah.
Well, that's stuff people don't see.
Yeah.
They want one hot cookies. They want a business.
Yeah.
They don't want to plan at 9:00 on a Sunday.
No. Sometimes I don't either, but yeah.
No, I don't want to do half the shit that I got to do.
Right.
It ain't about what you want to do.
Right.
It's about what you got to do.
Yeah.
Single mom, you don't want to work 3 jobs.
No one does.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to do what you got to do. All right, so any more tips on scheduling, looking at your stuff in advance? I think this is a huge one.
Yeah.
Underestimated, super, it's like when you start looking at sports, the stuff that's not sexy and fun, it's like what's going on the line sometimes.
Right, or the strength training that goes on behind the scenes.
All the stuff that don't get
Yeah.
the highlights. This is the stuff that don't get the highlights. And when you how do you do that? How do you say that you have this, you have a daughter, you have 3 businesses, you're still finding time, it's about the balance, and well, how do you make that all work? What's the scheduling? Because there's 168 hours in the week. The way that you manage those 168 determines on, time is money.
Yeah,
Time
absolutely.
is money. Time is something that we can't get back. So if I'm not spending it on the business, I'm scheduling out. I'm going to Aladdin with my daughter yesterday. Pick her up from school, Aladdin, all booked out, all planned out. So nothing was in that block.
Right. So, but people
that
see
day.
that you're at the movies at 3:00 on a Tuesday, and
Must
they're
be
like,
nice.
"Oh, must be
You're
nice."
lucky running a business.
That's how it goes. But they don't see the 9:00 on a Sunday or the 5 a.m. on Tuesday morning when you started your day in order to steal those 2 hours, if you will.
Up at 4 yesterday
Yeah.
in order to make it happen. Started working at 5
Yeah.
in order to make it happen. So, all right. So moving past the scheduling, how about any tips for a new entrepreneur? Any, especially when you talk to some females out there, in entrepreneurial businesses, challenges, how to overcome those challenges, tips on reinvesting into the business.
I think it's all about belief, and I think that this one is kind of universal across the sexes.
Yeah.
Is you have to find something you're passionate about, because like we've just spent the last 20 minutes talking about, is it's your baby. You have to love it. So don't go into something half-assed that you think you're just going to make money at. Did we think that we were going to make money selling cookies in downtown Youngstown in 2013? Not really, to be honest with you. But it was something that we cared about, and it checked off a couple different boxes that we were looking for personally. Something my daughter and I could do together, something that was reinvesting back into our community. being part of something that's bigger than us.
Mhm.
Those were all things that we wanted to do. Making money is great. Everyone needs to do it. I'm not knocking that.
Yeah.
But if that's your main reason for going into business, you're going to fail.
Truth.
Because you don't care enough.
Truth.
Yeah, so I think that you have to be passionate about it. You have to love it. And I think as women, we're frequently told, oh, well, I'm a mother, I can't do that, or oh, I'm doing this, so I don't know that I would have time, or I'm too stressed, or it would be too hard. It is hard, but anything that you really want is hard. So
Anything.
I feel like you need to just jump in with both feet and give it a go, because there's always going to be there's always going to be dinner to be made. There's always going to be something else that can pull your attention away. So you just need to, and I don't want to say think like a man, but sometimes I think you need to jump in and think like a man. Be like, no, I'm sorry. Your husband can take some time off to take the kids to the doctor. Or if this is what you want to do, then you need to find that person, that partner that's going to support you.
Amen.
And if you don't have it, you need to figure it out. And I don't mean to say that casually, like figure it out, but
no excuses.
No excuses. So when we first started out, and anytime you're starting out a business, there were always stumbling blocks, or there's just not a process. Like now, 6 years in, we've got a process, we've got a file, we've got a way to do it. But the first couple years, people would call me and I'd be like, figure it out. Like, I don't have the answer. Like, what do you think is best? So the joke became like, whenever we have this giant office, the quote on the wall is going to say, figure it out, because that's what you need to do. So I feel like as,
It empowers people too.
Yeah, as aspiring women entrepreneurs, you need to figure it out. Like, if that's what you want to do, figure out a way, because it's 2019. There is absolutely no reason that you can't do what you want to do.
Amen.
So
one of my top, actually our top salesperson out of 250 employees that we have that are in sales right now is a female with 4 kids.
God bless her.
In her 40s. And I've watched the same situation where people make excuses. I can't do this because I have a kid, or I can't do this because I have 2 children, and now granted 3 of those 4 are high school and
don't get me wrong, it does get easier as they get older, just from a time and right now sometimes I feel like your wife might be, you're just the carpool. You might as well have Uber on your car, because all you're doing is driving those kids around. So all you moms out there and dads, it does get easier. They can drive eventually, I promise you.
What about the mental talk? You talk about those obstacles, and I think a lot of people listen too much to what others got to say. I think your biggest critic and your biggest hater at times can be yourself.
Oh.
What goes on in your mind when you have those obstacles that arise in business, be it in the beginning phases where you didn't have all the answers, or there's a flood, or you have one location that works and the other one didn't work and we have to open up somewhere else. Those are points where people start to give up. I think instead of saying, oh, well, this one didn't work, we'll just put it over here. This one didn't work, we're going to put it over here. What people see is it's like the casino. You hear people screaming, you see the person's wins, or someone that bets on football, you hear when they won, you don't see how many that they lost. For the 14 offices, I've had to move a couple of those that weren't working, in an area. And, I think part of that.
And we've had to close 2 stores along the, at one point we had 5, now we're down to 3, 2 weren't what they needed to do. And,
yep.
I mean, you beat yourself up about it.
There may be a point where you end up with 10.
Yes.
And but you had to go from 5 to 3 to 10. And I think that's where people start to lose the mindset, the mental battle. How do you win those mental battles if you're coaching someone?
Well, I think it's hard, but I think you also have to look at it, and they say you're on an airplane, it's going down, you got to put your own oxygen mask on first. So you need to look at these other, that was how I got through it, was you had to look at the other stores, and if we're putting all of our focus on, something that is just not working, round peg, square hole, or square peg, round hole, it's just not working. So you got to put your own oxygen mask in. So we knew that we had to close stores in order to save the whole franchise, or the whole thing was going down. So, I think that's one way to look at it.
Sounds like a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So how do you, what is your strategy? Sometimes you get so good at something that you don't think about how it's actually happening, but you have to go. That's why they say sometimes people get better when they start teaching others, because it makes you focus on the small things that you were doing that you didn't realize that you were doing. So if you had to coach somebody on that, you had to coach an entrepreneur, or you get into a consulting position, and you're coaching somebody, how did you handle the mental aspect of, oh shit, if we don't do this, the whole ship is going to go down.
Correct.
I mean, that's part of the juggle, you know, that people
It's
don't
part of
see.
the juggle, and I think that that's the ongoing struggle that entrepreneurs have, is that identity of I am my business. And I think you have to look at it that I'm not my business. So like you can joke and be like, oh, she's one hot cookie. And yeah, that's true, but a lot of times I've walked into rooms and people have been like, this is Bergen, she has one hot cookie. And I'm like, I also like to read and I love to spend time with my dog. Like, I am not just this business. So when things are failing, it's not me personally failing. Granted, in the back of my head, like, that's what you're thinking, but you got to coach yourself out of that, and you have to say, like, it's not me, it's the business. And yes, I may have made that call, but that was the information I had at the time, so what are you going to do? And I feel like as someone who grew up with challenges and obstacles, and I feel like you're probably coming from the same place, like, shit happens, and you just have to roll with it. So I think that kind of coaching through that you are more than your business. It is part of you, but it's not all of you, and you're not all of it.
Right.
You're still a person and a human, and you're going to make mistakes, and it's from those mistakes that allow you to grow and to have different opportunities. And
You mentioned reading. Is that something that you do often? Do you read?
I do. I read a lot. My friend and I, we decided that this year we were going to read 52 books a year, so a book a
What
week.
your average top CEO reads? Did you know that?
No, but did you know that George Bush, when when he was president, read over 200 books in a year?
Crazy.
Who has the time?
Yeah.
So
there's a statistic out there that I've read and heard multiple times that your average, Fortune 500 CEO reads 52 books a year.
yeah.
One book.
So my dad and
a
I
week.
trade off book lists, but he's very snobby. He'll only read hardback. So I'm like, oh, I read this book. Do you want me to send it to you? And he's like, is it a paperback? Don't bother. I'm like, come on. And he's like, well, I like it on the shelf, and I like to reference it later. I'm like, whatever.
So you're running 3 businesses.
Yeah, and so I read like a nerd all day long.
And you're rocking, and you're doing some reading too.
Yeah, so we're
How
on
do
a
you find the
podcast.
time?
You make the time. So I
No excuses.
I try and
Figure it
do some more of the business, the inspirational reading in the morning, because I feel like that's where I'm a little more dialed in, and then the lighter fluff.
So you do some stuff in the morning
And then I'll
to
read
get
like
yourself
at
rocking.
night.
See, this is what I do too.
At
You
night
gotta
I'll
get
read some
yourself
more
going.
fluff stuff, because if I read the business stuff at night, I get too
You can't
riled
go to
up,
sleep.
and I
You're
can't
like,
go to
oh,
sleep.
yeah,
I'm like
yeah.
making lists
Yeah.
and sending out crazy emails
Yes.
and like a lunatic.
Yes.
So at night I'll read like the lighter, fluffier, chicklet kind of stuff. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Love it. So, any closing? First of all, congratulations on
Oh,
all
and
your
congrats to you. I mean, I feel
all
like your story
success.
is,
You deserve it, and I'm excited for you.
thank you.
And I got addicted to those cookies, so I was excited
You were one of our first customers that first week we were open.
to meet you.
And
even-
I said,
even
hey,
though-
you're from Youngstown. I
Yep,
know you.
Yep, you spotted it. Yep, and I was so pumped to see you guys. I couldn't believe it. I'm
Yeah.
like, what? Right around the corner?
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
a blessing and a curse, for me.
So we're super happy. My daughter and I are from Western Pennsylvania originally, so it feels like coming home. So
Yeah.
we're happy to be back over here, and we
Love
love the community.
Love it. So, in case somebody's listening in there in Pittsburgh, where exactly? are
Sure,
you
we're on
located?
Perry Highway, 10339 Perry Highway, right in front of North Allegheny Senior High School in the Moe's Plaza is the best way to describe us, about a mile from Whole Foods.
Yep. And anybody that knows where my office is, anybody listening from the agency, it's right across the street.
Yeah.
Right on Perry Highway. You could get there in less than a minute. So,
Yeah, so we're awesome. So thanks so much for having me on today. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the love and support. I
Thanks
love
for
that we
your
can
time.
team up on charity events benefiting both causes here in the area and back home for us. So awesome.
Similar minds, similar hearts.
Yeah.
I'm rocking, for those of you listening, not watching this, I'm rocking the It Was All a Dream t-shirt that she gave me from One Hot Cookie. And
Yeah.
when you gave it to me, I was all excited because I have a shirt like this, that not from my agency, but that I found somewhere, and I wear it all the time. And anytime that I was able to win awards, for our company, actually this last month, when I had the opportunity to go on stage and get a trophy on behalf of the people in this agency that I got to represent, I always go up to It Was All a Dream.
Yeah.
It was,
I mean,
that's what that is my theme
I
song
love it.
when I go up.
See?
And you hand me this T-shirt, so it flows with my belief system and in my attitude, and I know what this means.
Yeah,
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? It's more than a shirt. So I'm excited for you. Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you
I
for
know how
your-
much time
yeah.
goes into making stuff like this.
Absolutely.
happen.
We gotta go because we're both scheduled to
We gotta
drive.
go grind it out.
See ya.
Let's go. All right, appreciate it.
All right, thank
All right,
you.
we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.